everyone, I'm Alison.
And I'm Bryce, and
we're Better Half Reviews. And today we're looking at the expansion for Everdell called Bellfaire. And it's by James A. Wilson, published by Starling Games, and the art is by Andrew Bosley.
So Bellfaire is a modular expansion, so it's a little different than the other expansions for Everdell. But it adds some interesting bits and pieces that you can use in any Everdell game.
Alright, so let's take a look. Okay, so here's what we get in Bellfaire. Let's talk about the biggest aspect of it. We have the game board. So if you want to replace the tree, you can use this instead. This gives you the place to put all your meeples. You can put your cards here if you want. And it provides spaces for three other things that Bellfaire adds to the board. Alright, so one of the things that Bellfaire adds is the market. If you choose not to use the big board, they gave you a small board of just the market. And one thing I like about that is it gives you lots of different options for you to collect by placing one meeple there per season. So you can get 2 berries and 2 cards, which, it's kind of hard to get lots of berries, or, the much needed stone with 3 cards. Once you place one of your meeples here and pick whichever one you want, you place it down on the bottom on the trade side. So next time, if someone wants to, they can trade these resources in order to get coins and 2 of any other resource. Alright, so then here is the Flower Festival. You need 1 of every type of color card, and you can place your meeple there and you get 4 points. Pretty straightforward. And in the Bellfaire game, there are player powers. So you got this cool little background. And here is an example of what they look like. So you get a little picture up top with an explanation down below of how to use it. Some of them give you cards or access to more resources and other varied powers. So you should test them out, see how you like them. Depending on the player powers, you may get some tokens or an evil rugwort token. Alright, so another thing in Bellfaire are the Garland Awards. You shuffle them up and you pick 1 to use for the game, and that just gives an option for more points based on whoever collects the most of a certain type of card. First place gets 6 points, second place gets 3 points. And as for the cards, here are the generalized special events. So here's some, for examples, if you have 5 green cards, you can pay 2 berries, place a meeple, and you get 6 points. Or if you have 5 common critters, place a meeple, you get 5 points. So a lot of these are a little bit easier and more attainable with the options of the cards that you see. You don't have to go for 2 specific critters. So then you have the forest locations, and it just provides more replayability. And there's even this one that lets you activate 2 of the green cards in your city, which is pretty cool. And then you got 2 new critters available. You have the cardinals and the slightly ugly toads. And since the Pearlbrook expansion was already out previously, they gave you the frog ambassadors for those as well. And finally, the player boards, they are double-sided. Okay, so that's how you use the bits and pieces from Bellfaire. Let's talk about how we feel about it.
I really like Bellfaire as an expansion. It's something I will use in every Everdell game that I play. How about you?
Yeah, same. So no matter what combination, if we're just doing the base game, or if we're using Spirecrest or Pearlbrook or everything, Bellfaire will always be there. So what would you say are some of your favorite parts of Bellfaire?
I really like the new special event cards. They address one of my biggest complaints with the base game of Everdell, and they also address the additional potential deck bloat of adding more cards into the deck from the other expansions.
That is true. I really do like the more generalized special events because it just makes it feel a little bit more possible. They're still kind of hard to get, but you don't have to search the deck for 1 and 2 specific cards that you may or may not ever see. But you'll definitely see 4 different red cards throughout the game. So I like that.
Yeah, it makes it possible, but it's still a challenge to get.
So one of the things that I really like is the market board. I like that it gives you the opportunity to gain 1 or 2 resources and several cards with 1 move. So it feels a little bit different, and you feel yes, I'm going to get a lot of stuff. And there is that option where you can trade some of your coins or resources for the opposite. So I think that's kind of like a cool little mechanism of gaining or trading. So the player powers, we haven't played it a ton, so we haven't filtered through all of them, but we've had a lot of fun, and it just takes time like working out different combinations and seeing like if they feel like when we play against each other, like if the abilities feel kind of matched for what you're doing.
So the player powers are for higher player count games, and since quarantine, we haven't really had friends to play with.
Who has friends?
So yeah, if you're gonna play 2-player, just make sure the abilities you have are kind of balanced, because they can get really unbalanced. There's some abilities that'll just steamroll another player. They're just so good. So make sure you understand what you're getting into if you're gonna play a low player count game with those player powers.
Mm-hmm. And so for me, I like the house rule. So when you play with the player powers, you're not supposed to have that last meeple at the end. You're only supposed to play with 5. I don't like that. I like having all my meeples. And since it's just us playing, we kind of house rule it and sometimes just play it with all of them because I need more meeples, okay? One of the other things that I really like, and it's totally unnecessary and still kind of hard to fit on the table, I love the player boards and that they're double-sided. Like, really, you don't need them, but I love having a spot for my meeples and my resources and my coins, and it just makes me feel more organized.
And it does look really cool. You're like, oh, I have this pond, and then like I have all these critters and buildings, all around it. It does kind of look cool. Totally unnecessary, like Allison said, but kind of cool.
And I try to pick a board that matches the meeple that I'm using. So if I'm using like a water type creature, I'm going to use the water. If I'm using birds, I'm going to be up in the tree. I mean, it's just a simple little thing, but it is a challenge to fit on the table, and sometimes your city kind of looks a little bit wonky, but I use the player boards anyway. I know some people don't like them, but I like them.
So for you, what are your negatives about Bellfaire?
I don't really have strictly any negatives, but for me personally, I don't use this board. I know a lot of people don't like the tree or don't like to use it. And so this was the company saying, hey, you don't have to have the tree. You can use this board instead. Totally makes sense. I get it. Like, there's places for your meeples and you can put your cards there. But I feel like it's even more of a table hog. And I like the tree. And I like that it holds up my cards. Without the tree, especially like if you sleeve your cards, they're just going to be falling all over the place. So I like to use the tree and then the extra little market board instead of this gigantic thing. That's just me. That's like, I guess, my biggest negative.
Yeah, I would second that. You're getting kind of a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily need for Everdell. It's kind of nitpicky. Like, I love the player boards. I love the art on them. I will use them. But do you really need it? No. Do you really need a new, base board when you already have the tree and everything else? No. But with that being said, I won't play a game of Everdell without some part of Bellfaire in the game.
That's true. But yeah, so overall, we love Bellfaire. It's one of our favorites, and we'll always use Bellfaire, at least bits and pieces of it in every single game. And I like that it just adds like a little bit of variability. Again, like, we talked about, like, you don't have to use all of it. Not all of it's necessary, but it's nice.
And it's fun just to change things up every now and then by like throwing in the market or throwing in different forest locations.
Or the flower festival, player powers, and on.
It just adds a lot more playability to Everdell, which already had a lot of replayability to it.
And of course, again, new meeples.
So if you're looking for a more polished version of Everdell, Bellfaire is definitely right for you. It might not add too much more content, but it definitely polishes the game and adds to replayability.
So that's what we think about Bellfaire. We like it. You should go check it out.
I'm Bryce.
I'm Allison.
And this is Better Half Reviews.
Happy gaming.
Have fun.